What is going on, everybody? The Eagles trade A.J. Brown. It's something we expected to happen rather quickly after the June 1st date. The Eagles get a first-round pick and a fifth-round pick, and we break it down on top of how this Eagles offense could potentially still be just as lethal, if not even more dangerous, as we enter the 2026 season. What's going on, everybody? I'm Corey Naito alongside David Neese. David, what's going on, man?
Not much, man. I'm glad we're finally getting past this chapter. I think people view it probably very differently. Everybody has their own outlook on how this, ended for them, and the way that they'll perceive him going forward. But I'm glad it did happen quickly, wasn't drawn out for days, and we finally get to turn the chapter. And it was nice that OTA started today too. We just literally just keep moving on.
I agree with that 100%. The OTAs, you're starting to see the team out on the field for the first time as a group. They started last week as well. Only 2 open sessions for the media. We're going to talk about some updates that we saw from today's session. They're off tomorrow, and then they've got 2 more days, I believe, before the mandatory minicamp. And then sooner than we know it, it will be training camp in mid-July. But want to get your thoughts on the trade compensation, David. You were out there earlier in the process expecting a 2028 first-round pick for the Eagles when this all kind of broke down. It seemed like Howie Roseman wasn't going to move A.J. Brown unless he got at least a first-round pick, which I was in agreement with. What did you come away with the compensation of the first-round pick in 2028 and then that fifth-round pick kind of as an add-on, if you will, in next year's draft?
Yeah, it was even rumored that extra fifth-round pick was just so Howie would move forward with the deal, just so it wouldn't linger around for days. So yeah, I did think a 2028 was the way to go. It seemed like that the Patriots were offering like a 2 in 2027. And when you have the job stability that Howie Roseman does, like he said himself, we're going to be playing football in 2028 also. So you take the asset. And a lot of people will view those differently come draft day in 2027. That 2028 first becomes a valuable piece if they want to move up for anybody, if they want to grab somebody late. You could package it with a third or a fourth and end up with the first round pick in 2027 anyway. So I mean, at the end of the day, they traded a 1 and a 3 in 2022. They get back a 1 and a 5, and they get 4 postseasons, 2 Super Bowl appearances, and a championship. I mean, to me, that's about as maximum value as you could probably hope for.
Yeah, I saw an analogy floating around on social media, and I really liked it. Essentially, Howie Roseman leased a nice sports car, if you will. You get the first and the third round pick to give away to the Titans to get A.J. Brown. You mentioned what they were able to do in his 4 years, and then you trade A.J. Brown in, so to speak, if we're sticking with the car analogy, for a first-round pick and a fifth-round pick. You get some wear and tear, if you will, and you're able to continue to build your draft capital as well. Now, don't want to talk about A.J. Brown too much. We certainly want to talk about the offense and what we can expect to see. Sean Mannion received some high praise from Jordan Mailata earlier today. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit. But are you concerned about A.J. Brown's knees moving forward? I know he's not an Eagle anymore, but the reports came out that that's why the Rams had initially backed off of the trade. The physical came back good. The trade is complete, but it seemed like the knee issue may have been a knock on the price for A.J. Brown, on top of obviously the antics and his public optics, if you will, of him not wanting to be in Philly anymore.
Yeah, I think that probably played the largest role, quite frankly. If you look at his production, I mean, he was probably the best receiver in Eagles history over a 4-year period. I mean, statistically, he is. I think, with the outcome that we just discussed, with the 2 Super Bowl appearances and 1 title, I think, the result speaks that way as well. I think, nobody had a 4-year stint like he did. But if you look at the production, year 1 and year 2 was like 1,500 yards almost. It was something like 1,496 in his first year. I can't remember what his second year was, but it was high again, 1,400. But every year it's decreased. and last year was just a little over 1,000. And a lot of fans like I saw who were, upset about the return. They did a comp with Jalen Waddle, but Jalen Waddle doesn't have a knee concern. Jalen Waddle's a year younger, and perception becomes reality if teams believe that there's some sort of problem. The reality of it is they're not going to pay as much. And I do think it played a pretty big part in the whole negotiations in general. And quite frankly, I think Howie maximized every ounce of value out of this as you could. I mean, if he had signed him to a 4-year deal after giving up a 1-3 in 2022 and he just walked for a comp pick, I still think he won. So getting a 1 and a 5 just seems, outrageous to me. I'm shocked that he actually was able to pull that off, and waiting a year for it is even better. And if it is a problem with his knee, maybe 2 years from now, they're suffering through something like that, and the draft pick is even a higher pick in 2028. So, yeah, I think it played a big role. I personally, never heard him mention anything about it, but it's widely reported for months. So it's, definitely something to it.
And he dismissed it in his press conference today up in New England. He said he missed one game because he took a nasty hit to the knee. And he has played through it. Will it be a concern? Who knows? But he's still a top 15 wide receiver, in my opinion. He's looking to be a top 3 wide receiver in the league. It's evident based on what he said after the Super Bowl, based on why he doesn't want to play in Philly anymore. And he believes that Drake May and the New England Patriots give him that best ability and option to chase numbers. And, hey, every player has their own goals and own reasonings. I know AJ is getting a lot of heat on social media. I think the way he's kind of handling it is a little odd with the Maria Taylor interview right away. And then he kind of did an ad for a moving company on his Instagram as a quote official statement. And then it comes out that he's posting photos of him in an AI imposed New England Patriot jersey. And the statement was apparently nothing but AI generated. So certainly some heated exchanges on Twitter and X certainly taking place over the last 24 hours. But want to move forward.
He's having fun with it, honestly. I think he's trolling. I think he thinks this is funny. His personality is kind of like that. Yeah.
I know they were having a debate on, him saying this isn't heaven, but it's close to it. And I think that's him just being excited to play for his childhood team. Now, a lot of people don't really buy that it's his favorite team. He's not from the area, whatever, but it was. So, hey, it's what he wanted to do. The Eagles were able to accomplish the goals that they wanted to in terms of compensation, and they're able to send AJ to the top destination. With that said,
we'll get to talk about them plenty more when they face each other during training camp.
So training camp, joint practice, all that fun stuff. Now, speaking of fun stuff, DeVonta Smith is the guy, David. We like him a lot. Brian Cameron, who unfortunately can't make the show tonight, we're all big fans, big supporters of DeVonta Smith. We think pound for pound, he's arguably one of the best wide receivers in the league. They had a media scrum with him, almost like pinned him up against a brick wall there at the training complex. But DeVonta essentially told reporters that he doesn't really care where he's listed on the depth chart. 1, 2, 3, 4, doesn't matter. He has a job that he has to go out and do. And I think that's just a breath of fresh air to hear for fans after the whole A.J. Brown debacle, where you've got a no-nonsense, I'm here to play football, I'm here to help the team win. And DeVonta Smith, I think, is going to be in store for a massive year. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. There's always an unspoken determination behind him. The type of look that makes others wonder what he's thinking all the time, because he's not very outspoken. He's not very outgoing. He's kind of reserved. It's not that he's unfriendly or distant. It's just he's always keyed in. And, he's proven to be a thorn in opposing defensive sides for years. And I don't know that he's going to be the traditional wide receiver one, like, everybody compared him to AJ. If we're going to talk about the offense a little bit, I do think it's a little bit more spread out. I don't think the offense is going to be as vertical. It's going to be more horizontal. And, the size, I think even today, if you watch some of the footage and if you've seen him this offseason, he's already bulked up a little bit. He's definitely, I joked today that he was, he's not skinny Batman anymore. He's semi-swole Batman, but I mean, he's definitely put on some weight and some muscle mass, more importantly. So yeah, he's like a silent assassin, and I'm looking forward to it. But whatever they ask him to do, like he said himself, whether he's 1, 2, 3, 4, he's going to go do his job. But make no mistake about it, he's relishing being wide receiver one and getting extra targets.
Yeah, I saw earlier today he came in listed at almost 190 pounds, which is a pretty
Right.
big bulk up from what he normally was. I think he was like 170, maybe 175 listed on the roster in years past. On Football Reference, they have him at 170 pounds. So that would be a 20-pound bulk up for DeVonta Smith, who put in his third 1,000-yard receiving season of his career. So, David, I ask you, his best season in terms of yards was back in 2022, where he fell 4 yards shy of an even 1,200. Does DeVonta Smith surpass 1,200 yards receiving this year, and where do you see him finishing based on the early signs of what this offense could potentially be?
Yeah, I do think he'll surpass that. I mean, I mentioned, he's always been basically used as a wide receiver one in this offense, but he did not get the same target volume as AJ Brown did. It doesn't sound like a huge difference, but during AJ Brown's 4 years, he got 8.4 targets per game. That same period of time, DeVonta had 7. That's 1.5 a game, which, like, to many doesn't sound like much, but that's 25 targets a year, roughly. You're talking 100 extra targets, and you're talking about 4 more yards or something. Yeah, I do think he's going to be utilized in that way. And they're not going to get rid of, the offense. I said it's not going to be as vertical. They're definitely not getting rid of those deep shots. I mean, he's the dagger for a reason, and him and Jalen have a really good rapport with those. So yeah, I do expect him to have his biggest statistical season.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's going to shine this year. He only had 4 touchdowns. You mentioned the target share. It also dipped, obviously, when the whole debacle happened where AJ was not happy with the targets he was getting. DeVonta Smith was actually on pace for a career year. I remember doing some calculations trying to see where he could be on pace because midway through the season, he was on pace to shatter that 1196 mark in 2022 and have more than 7 touchdowns. So I agree. I think DeVonta Smith is going to be a really fun player to watch this year. And I think DeVonta is going to get the respect and the, I don't want to say admiration because fans enjoy him, but I think from a national lens, I think he's going to get the respect and the awareness that he deserves as being a really good top 15, 20 wide receiver. And maybe he does take that JSN jump. I know there's a lot of people in the building, outside the building, that are kind of comparing this potential leap for Smith, similar to what JSN did with Seattle last year, where he was just a target monster. You could kind of run him all over the field on different route trees. And it certainly seems like DeVonta Smith is poised to be in a huge role here this year, obviously, as the bona fide number 1 wide receiver. So obviously that's a reason why the Eagles could potentially be more dangerous than last year, because Jalen Hurts doesn't have to worry about appeasing A.J. Brown anymore and kind of forcing targets. But also, Mekhi Lemon, the rookie, could potentially make a splash this year. Now, if you missed it, he did not participate in today's OTA practice. He was seen with a right black leg sleeve on his right leg, something that he was not sporting last week. And it was reported that he has a soft tissue injury, perhaps a hamstring. He's not expected to participate in the rest of the OTA sessions. First off, David, are you concerned about the injury? And then second of all, what do you think Mekhi Lemon can bring to this offense?
Yeah, I'm not that concerned about it. I mean, it's unfortunate that he just doesn't get the reps because, they're installing the offense, and listening to it be installed and doing a walkthrough isn't the same as, taking action to it. But I was told the same as you, that it was, a muscle issue, a little bit of swelling, nothing to be concerned, long term. But he did have that, like you said, that compression sleeve, on his leg. But yeah, he brings a dynamic, him and the other rookie, Eli Stowers, who we'll probably speak about as well. But they clearly brought in players to do things they haven't done before, which is a lot of targets over the middle of the field. And Makai Lemon is a yak monster. I mean, when he gets his hands on the ball, he is very difficult to bring down. And, he's the kind of guy that turns a 10-yard reception into a 50-yard, take one to the house touchdown. And, I'm very excited to see them utilize that because, everything will still run through Jalen Hurts. That's just the way it goes. And that's the way it should go. But if they unleash him with under center concepts and more creative play action looks, while also utilizing the middle of the field, it's going to prove to be mutually beneficial to him. Makai Lemon, Stowers, Goddard, who kind of got forgotten throughout all of this, and obviously DeVonta Smith. Hurts has proven to be at his best when he's playing under perceived pressure, and I expect he'll rise again because he just doesn't feel it the way the outsiders look, and I think Lemon's a big part of that, and he brings again a completely different dynamic than what AJ Brown did. But I think we're starting to see how different the offense is really going to be moving forward. It's the first time, and this is year 6 with Sirianni. First 5 years was basically the same thing, just different play callers and different sequencing to it. This isn't that.
No, it's not. DeVonta Smith said today during the media scrum that the offense is different, and he was asked if he could kind of elaborate a little bit more about it, and he shook his head. He said, "No, not really. Like I'm still trying to learn it, and it's just going to be different." It was noted that the Eagles flashed some 12 personnel during the 11-on-11. You had Dallas Goedert and Johnny Munt as the tight ends, DeVonta Smith and Tavian Wicks, who made his first appearance in the OTAs after being absent last week. He's the next guy I kind of want to talk about. They traded for him. They signed him to a $12.5 million a year extension to have him under contract through 2027. He has experience playing in an offense that Sean Mannion had some fingerprints on. It seems like there's a lot of excitement about Wicks' ability to just be that wide receiver 3 in an offense that, as we mentioned, is expected to kind of spread the wealth here this year.
Yeah. I'm expecting a breakout season for Dontavian Wicks. The only thing that's held him back has been his hands. If he can secure passes, he's going to get targets and he's going to be trusted. I mean, his release skills have been noticeable since his time at UVA, which is, the first college he was at. I went to a lot of those games and he was just this lean, big guy, who, used patience and just bodied receivers. And, he got defenders off balance. He plants, he gets outside, he goes by them. He just runs routes, very well. And he runs defenders, he's not afraid to mix it up. He'll be an asset in the run game. And he just has an uncanny ability to create space and separation, which again is kind of what, we mentioned in, about Lemon and Stowers. He's, just a physical, engaged guy. And I'm really excited to see him because the film and the history suggests that above average production has just been looming on the outside, just waiting right on the cusp for a breakout. And again, if he secures the ball, I think he's going to have his biggest season of his career.
Well, you and our boy Brian Cameron, as we mentioned, unable to make the show tonight, but he chimes in Wicks breakout season in all caps. It would be good for the Eagles to have a contributing wide receiver at that WR3 spot. That is for certain. So we talked about the 3-headed monster right now in Smith, Lemon, and Wicks. Hollywood Brown, Elijah Moore, Johnny Wilson, I think they're all kind of competing for that 4th spot. Hollywood Brown would probably have the inside track just based on his experience and his veteran leadership that he has shown. Want to really move to the tight ends now here, David. We talked about Eli Stowers. Dallas Goedert is back for another season, but I think it's safe to say the 3 of us, including Brian, we're really excited to see what Eli Stowers can bring to this offense.
Yeah, I am. Yeah. And a lot of people, are going to question, can he play the role here because he just isn't an experienced blocker. I don't think he's as bad as blocking as a lot of people have stated. He definitely needs to bulk up. He needs to get, more functional strength. but he was always a willing blocker. He just, didn't have the body type or the strength to back a lot of it up. And as he grows older, gets into an NFL weight room, he's going to develop a lot of those things. But his route running and his ability to be a game breaker at the position is going to be a difference maker, something the Eagles haven't had for a long time. And, they brought in Johnny Munt. Is that how you say his name? I mean, he's going to do the dirty work. Or, they could even run 3 tight end personnel packages if they wanted to. I mean, I think Goddard kind of gets forgotten due to the, selection of Stowers in the second round, but he's playing for another contract too. And he had an off year as far as blocking goes, but
Yep.
statistically he put up, 10 or 11 touchdowns. Yeah. I mean, best season offensively probably. And maybe ever for a tight end, I think. I don't think anybody ever had as many touchdowns as he did at the position. But yeah, Stowers just brings a dynamic ability that nobody's, really had at that position for Philadelphia for many years. And if he can sell the run blocking just a little bit, just to keep teams honest, he could find himself on the field pretty soon, because his ability to just get down the field is an element that was sorely missed from that position over the past couple of years.
Yeah, I agree. I know he hasn't really made a lot of noise in the 2 sessions that the media has been able to cover. I remember last week there really wasn't anything notable from what Stowers did. And then today it looks like he caught 1 short pass from rookie quarterback Cole Payton, who a lot of people are intrigued by. Looking at some reports, seems like he's got a little bit more of a Tim Tebow-esque build to him, but he is certainly an intriguing quarterback. Want to talk about the quarterback room for a little bit here as we quickly transition, as we continue to talk about how this Eagles offense could be more dangerous without A.J. Brown, which is hard to realize or think about, but the way that this offense is starting to be structured with Sean Mannion. However, the Eagles have had Andy Dalton take the bulk of the second team offensive snaps in the 2 sessions that the media have been in attendance for. I feel like everybody assumed it was Tanner McKee that would be doing so. Anything that's kind of raised your eyebrows with the 14-year veteran kind of taking those snaps away from Tanner McKee?
I mean, kind of, because they did draft Cole Payton. McKee's in his last year, and you could not rely on Payton to be, QB2 this year. So it would make perfect sense that it would be Dalton. And a lot of people have wanted, McKee to be traded because they think he's going to get like a king's ransom, like a second round pick. I don't think that is in the cards, but there could be a situation where he's on the move, especially if there's a needy team. I mean, crazy things happen, just like when the Eagles were able to move Sam Bradford to the Vikings, 10 years ago, when I think it was Bridgewater who tore his knee up in camp and they thought they were a quarterback away. I mean, teams overpay for quarterbacks constantly. There's, the joke that the Eagles are the quarterback factory, but that's kind of what they do. They kind of move on from guys. They've moved on from Wentz and got a first. They moved on from Foles, and I don't remember what they got back as compensation, but they've done this over and over again, going back to the Andy Reid's time. They moved McNabb for a second. They moved A.J. Feely for a second. They moved Kevin Cobb for a second. I mean, it's just kind of what they do. So I think that they've kind of tried to raise his value. Of course, he had that kind of dud game at the end of the season, but there are still a lot of teams that believe in him. So the structure is there for them to have the ability to move on, because they will have a very tough decision. I know Howie said that they could find a way to keep 4 quarterbacks, but that's a really tall ask.
It really is. Normally they'll have one that's just a healthy scratch at times. It was Sam Howell during the games, and they would just carry the backups and whatnot. But it will be interesting. I think that is certainly something to keep an eye out for. You did mention the Tanner McKee game at the end of last season. He just didn't carve up, the Giants as they thought that he would. Obviously, Tanner McKee also wasn't playing with the starters, and the Giants did have, their main pieces for the most part out on the field. But for Tanner McKee, that's kind of the straw you draw right now as the backup quarterback that has some of the tangibles, has some of the physical traits that teams might be interested in, but you only get a small window of opportunity to showcase that you could potentially become a starting quarterback in the NFL. I'll tell you something potentially we will not be doing, and that will be shaving my head. But we do want you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're watching on YouTube, we appreciate it. If you're not, quickly go over there, search Flipping the Birds, and help us get to 100 subscribers. We're pushing near 70. As myself, Brian, and David, we are always love talking to you guys. Always love talking Eagles football, and the hair, it's going to stay, Brian. I know you're a little jealous about the luscious locks I still got going on, but yeah, there will be no trimmer razor going to the scalp here for this guy right here. But make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel as we continue to bring you coverage all season long here on Flipping the Birds. David, he's offering your hair now, so I don't know if you'd be down for that, but I certainly will not be down for that.
Yeah, I could maybe go to a 2-guard or something, but I'm not shaving it. Shaving it completely.
No, I hear you. Speaking of guards, I love the segues you're helping me set up here today, David. It's like, we're call us butter. We're on a roll. You have a piece coming out about Markel Bell. And interestingly enough, again, he was with the first team, I believe, today with some injuries and some guys that are just not participating in the voluntary OTAs. What do you like about Bell so much? I still believe they have to sign him. He's the only rookie in the draft class yet to agree to a deal just yet, but they still have time. But this guy is kind of a freak of nature.
Yeah, he's 6'9", 346. He ran the 5.0 something in the 40. I mean, he's the physical specimen, like the equivalent of kind of what Jordan Davis was on the defensive tackle side as an offensive tackle. He just kind of has that same kind of, athletic, freakish ability. His movement skills and ability to control his frame is just unheard of at that size. The challenge for Bell is that he remains a projection, because of his, height and, his pad level. Defenders can win with leverage, kind of like Lampkin, he tries to get under people. Well, that's kind of what, opponents try to do to Bell as well. But, they were drafting a player that they were hoping they could groom to be a starter for the future, presumably to take over Lane Johnson's spot there. But the fact that he's already working at right tackle while Lane's out, and that's not Fred Johnson, kind of seems that he might be able to get on the field a little quicker, and maybe they'll have the confidence to use him as a spot starter. The Eagles' formula under Howie Roseman has always been to find elite traits in these guys, trust the coaching, develop them behind a veteran, and eventually watch the investment pay off. And I think this is another guy who's just perfect for that role. I mean, he's just the latest example of what they try to do. And again, there's not many guys his size doing this, but I think his pass protection in particular make him very attractive to the Eagles. And I'm really looking forward to his development.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a fascinating offensive lineman to watch. According to reports today, the first team unit on the line: Jordan Mailata at left tackle, Landon Dickerson at left guard, Cam Jurgens at center, right guards Tyler Steen, and Markel Bell was getting the reps at right tackle, just like he did last week. Obviously, Lane Johnson not in attendance. Fred Johnson also is out, so there really wouldn't be anybody else in that rotation probably that would supplant Markel Bell. But, this guy is a big-time freak of nature athlete. He had really good success in the SEC. Pass blocking numbers were off the charts, and I think the Eagles realized the potential that they could tap into. We've got a question here from Jay Fizz. Does this new OC give you confidence with the in-house talent, or do you think they make another offensive move? David, I'll let you start it off.
I don't think they're going to make another offensive move. I mean, not for a star type player. I mean, you saw him bring in yet another, I think it was a running back this time, who was a former, Shanahan offensive player with the 49ers. I mean, they're constantly bringing in these guys to that fits the system. And I think that, the big pieces are already in place. And if they could find, something like, I think a lot of people want them like Becton or something like that, who knows? Maybe if his value, if he just keeps not finding the team, you never know. Howie's pretty masterful at finding those kind of values late in the summer. So that would probably be the only way. I think if anything, you might see another piece added to the defense before you, like an important piece before you would the offense.
Yeah, I agree. I think if anything, a bigger piece maybe could be at safety if they decide not to move on with Marcus Epps as the starter. But offensively, I think they're pretty much set, especially skill position wise. They did just sign Elijah Mitchell, the running back, to the team for the time being. He was at the rookie workouts a couple weeks ago. Obviously, had a great rookie season with San Francisco back in 22, I believe it was, but then lost playing time, obviously, with Christian McCaffrey, and then has dealt with some injuries. And now, that's another running back added to this running back group that has Saquon Barkley, Tank Bigsby. I think everybody wants to see as RB2. You've got Will Shipley, Damian Pierce they brought in as well. So they're going to try and find some depth pieces, I think, as David mentioned, and I agree with. Brian says he's whispering. David, he is whispering.
No, I'm yelling this time. No whisper.
So we're coming to an end here shortly. We're talking about the Eagles offense, how they could be more dangerous potentially than a season ago. You talked about it earlier, David, that this team's going to be more horizontal than vertical. There's going to be a lot of over the middle passes, ideally. We saw that Jalen Hurts threw some passes today in the middle. His first pass of the day wasn't a great one, but it was in the flats, and it was picked off by Jeremiah Trotter Jr. But it does seem that these routes and what this offense will look like under center, play action, is going to be a different looking offense. How long of a leash do you think Sean Mannion has in terms of maybe getting this offense up to speed? We know fans are going to be looking at this offense with the 1,000 zoom microscope. That first offensive series of this season is going to be scrutinized heavily. How many games do you think it's going to take for this offense to really start to click?
I mean, probably up to 6 weeks or something for it to really get going. That's just kind of normally how those installations take. What could benefit them the most would be, which we didn't really touch on the running backs. We mentioned all of them, but is that new outside zone scheme that they're going to run. If Barkley buys into that and Tank can flourish in that, that takes the pressure off of everything. As we saw last year with the OL hurting for a large part of the season, the run game was just non-existent. And Saquon Barkley wants to get back to those big playmaking ability, home run hitting plays that he had in 2024. And, this is different for him. These are like one cut runs instead of, multi jukes and things like that he, is used to. But even though he's entering year 9, he's as hungry as ever. And I think the quicker that they can get the run game going, the faster everything else will fall into place. It sounds like a broken record, but everything starts in the trenches. And if you can sell the run game, it makes those under center play fakes and everything else just open up. It just causes hesitation. If they can do a play fake to, Barkley or Bigsby and just cause linebackers and safeties just to bite for half a second, it opens up that middle of the field, which they're, looking forward to exploiting. So I think a month and a half. But as far as a leash goes, they made a lot of changes. I don't think this is an OC you're going to see gone in 1 year unless he gets a raise to HC.
I agree. And I thought Saquon really did a nice job breaking down kind of what this new offensive scheme can look like with that stretch zone, as you mentioned, and just being under center. Saquon said under center as a running back, you can see things more clear. You have to get your shoulders square, but it's easier under center opposed to being in shotgun. He said it's easier to get downhill quicker. You can use those stretches, those outside zones. He said, hey, listen, it's not a secret what this scheme is, but he's looking forward to doing it. He's looking forward to accepting the challenge. And I thought it was interesting. he said that, yes, he's been watching running backs like Bijan Robinson and the Christian McCaffreys and the Jonathan Taylors, but he's actually been pulling up old film of Todd Gurley. Reached out to the former Ram running back on Instagram, just kind of trying to pick his brain a little bit. And I thought that was an interesting pull and an interesting example that Barkley is looking to try and emulate and learn from. And Barkley said, hey, we don't need to be more patient on the outside, and inside runs is when you want to be a little bit more patient, have a great jump cut. But, he said the guys who have been great on these outside zones, it's been that one cut back. He likes to kind of make that one cut or that two-step move and then bolt like we saw in 2024. And if I remember correctly, David, most of his big runs as well were kind of on those stretch plays to the outside where he just put that first foot down and then just turned it uphill.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, they were. Yeah, so I think he's excited about that, and he's another guy who's just a film rat. You talk about the core that the Eagles have there now. Mekhi Lemon, if you talk to any of his college coaches, he just eats, breathes football. That's all he cares about. That's with Barkley, that's with DeVonta, and that's with Jalen Hurts. So the core that they're building around right now all have that same mentality, that same personality. They're kind of reserved for the most part. They're not as like outspoken to a degree, and I think it's going to fit in perfectly. I think they've put a lot of guys around Jalen Hurts who have a very similar mentality, and I think that's going to benefit him quite quickly as far as learning the system and being able to utilize it, because they're all doing it at the same time and they all have the same work ethic. And I think that's a really big deal.
Talking about Sean Mannion, the new OC, what this offense can look like. Mentioned he received some high praise from Jordan Mailata earlier today. This was quite the quote here. I got to pull it up because I want to make sure that I get it correct. But basically, he said that if he could put three of the smartest people in the building in a room together, Sean Mannion would be there, and he'd probably be by himself. And Jordan Mailata called Mannion an evil genius, said this guy knows ball. And I think if you've got one of your mauler offensive linemen talking in that type of tone with that type of excitement, and Jalen Hurts said last week he can see the vision of what this offense will be, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, then there's no doubt about it. Yeah, I don't know how Sirianni feels hearing that he'd be in the room solo, but it makes all of us feel good. I mean, after a year of listening to some of the nonsensical reasonings coming from Kevin Patullo, to listen to someone like Sean Mannion speak has just been so refreshing. And that's not to say Patullo didn't know what he was talking about. Some people just have a hard time articulating it. But just listening to Mannion speak, it has been just a revelation, just the way he explains everything. And if he's that descriptive to the beat reporters and to the media, I can only imagine, the way it's gone on in the classroom there.
I agree. I was able to catch up on what Mannion said, and I actually enjoyed listening to it.
Yeah.
I hated trying to listen to what Kevin Patullo was saying, and I'm not trying to rag on the guy, but he took a page right out of Nick Sirianni's book. It's the word salad. I'm going to say a lot of words. I'm going to say a couple of keywords, and at the end, you're going to read your transcription, and you're going to realize I didn't say anything. So it was just refreshing to see Sean Mannion and hear what Sean Mannion had to say about this offense. Final question for me, David, as we put a bow on tonight's show. Any storylines that you're keeping an eye out for, whether it's offense? I know tonight's show is, primarily surrounding the offense and talking about what they can do to be even better than what they were in the past. But even if it's a defensive storyline, I'm sure our viewers would love to hear about it. But we'll start with the offensive side of the football. Is there anything that's kind of piquing your interest, raising your eyebrow at all through the reports we've seen and what you've been hearing?
The absence of Lane Johnson is a little concerning, if I'm being honest. I think that they've thrown a lot of bodies at the position. I mean, they have a lot of OLs on this offense right now. I mean, I can't even count how many they have offensive linemen on this offense. It is a lot. Miles Hinton and Willie Lampkin and Jake Majors and Cameron William and Markel Bell and Holland Pierce and Drew Kendall and Micah Morris. And it's just a lot of bodies here. And very few of them could ever turn into what Lane Johnson is. And he's just such an integral part of this offense. I mean, you might know what the numbers are, but the Eagles win-loss with and without Lane is insane. Like, I mean, he is a huge difference maker. And him not being able to participate after being out those last few weeks at the end of the season last year, and I don't believe he played in the postseason game either, did he? Against the Niners. So, I mean, you're talking about a very lengthy absence at this point. And I do think that's a little concerning. And I guess the reason it raises an eyebrow is I just haven't heard it addressed. Like, I really haven't heard like what's taking so long. Like, back in January, we were hearing, oh, he might play against the Niners. He might play the week before that. And it just never came to fruition. And I do think, not to sound, be a David Downer, but it just seems, a little eye raising there. Just, I would like to hear more information about what has transpired here and why it's taken so long.
No, that's a great observation because you're right. He has been missing significant time since last season. Obviously, these OTAs are voluntary, but you would like to hear from Jordan Mailata or somebody, Nick Sirianni, Howie Roseman, somebody to say, hey, he's just taking the extra time. We don't need him to be here right now, and everything is going well. But as you mentioned, it's been pretty quiet on that front so far. We'll see if he's in action during the mandatory mini camp, and then obviously with training camp starting, that will obviously be the bigger tell, if you will, to see where he is status wise in that regard. Anything on the defense kind of sticking out?
Yeah, Zach Bond stated how Vic Fangio said he's going to unleash more of the defense this season, which that is just another awesome thing to hear. Just a great quote. That should be a scary thought for opposing offenses in the NFL. And it's a testament to how much more he believes the Philly defense still has to elevate. I mean, that's a pretty big statement. And, he's one of the brightest defensive minds in the game. And as great a game as he calls, there were things that got exposed last year, like especially in the Bears game, that they had a lot of trouble doing. And a lot of the defensive players have stated that what caused them trouble last year is what the Eagles offense is installing this year. So I think that's part of what Fangio and the defensive players are talking about is they're getting far more practice reps against the type of things that cause them issues. And, that's music to my ears, man, because if that defense makes another step forward, if they progress again, I mean, that's going to be a really hard road for anybody that they're facing this season because they're already, a top 5 defense in the conference, and they end up 1 or 2, man. I mean, they're going to be a very tough out.
When I heard that quote, I immediately thought about the game against the Chicago Bears at home this past season. Me too. Because that is exactly the offensive scheme that Ben Johnson brought over from Detroit to Chicago. Looked like Caleb Williams took a big step forward. They had some good production from their wideouts. Their running backs gouged the Eagles. If I remember correctly, both running backs, DeAndre Swift and was it Kyle Monangai, had over 100 yards each in that win against the Eagles in Philadelphia. So it certainly gave the defense fits, and it works in unison now, right? Because how many times we say, oh, well, the Eagles offense should be better, or they could be better because they're going against one of the top 5 units defensively every day in practice. I know they're not hitting. I know they're not doing the full thing, but they're still going against some talented players. Now the defense can finally get in mojo with that kind of party where it's like, okay, hey, our offense, who's got really good skill players, who's got a good quarterback, a talented running back, this is now what we're seeing. So I think it could just make this team better overall indirectly with this new offensive scheme. And some people might not even think about it. You make a great point there where this defense is going to be seeing this offensive scheme that has been giving them fits over the last couple of seasons. We are about to end this one. David, any final thoughts before
No,
we
just
say goodbye?
thank everybody for watching, and please subscribe and check out all the content at PSN. I know Corey had an OTA piece. You had another piece before that a couple of days ago. It's escaping me because I just read Brian's piece earlier today. He had one about the offense that we kind of discussed today. I should have one coming out tomorrow. I think you have another one coming out tomorrow. So there's just a plethora of content between written and the videos and the pod. So anything you can do to continue supporting us is greatly welcomed, and we hope that y'all continue to come down with us every Tuesday or Monday or whatever night we end up doing these during the off season. But again, thank you all for listening and all the questions.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate you tuning in, whether it was on YouTube or X. We certainly appreciate the viewership. Again, please help us out. Subscribe to YouTube at Flipping the Birds. We're pushing 70 subscribers. We'd love to get to 100 by the end of the month, and tell your other friends and family who are beloved Eagles fans to tune it in and keep it locked in to Flipping the Birds. Also, get your red marker out, David. Wednesday, August 19th, Thursday, August 20th, the Eagles and Patriots will scrimmage ahead of their preseason game up in Foxborough. But that will be another topic for another day. He's David Neese. I'm Corey Naito. Brian Cameron will be back with us next week. We appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate the support. Make sure to follow us on X and, of course, Philly Sports Network and Flipping the Birds, where we will be bringing you all the latest and greatest when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great rest of your week, and go Birds.